Hello, everyone. Good morning here in the US. Good afternoon in Europe. Good afternoon in Brazil. We are very happy to be here today, starting a new series of talks with guest speakers that we are inviting from all over the world. This has been an initiative of the United States Spiritist Federation with a name, of course, to help all those at this particular moment where we're homebound and there is so much happening around with other online people doing online meetings all over the world. But especially, we thought that we had to do something as well in English, and this has been our mission at the United States Spiritist Federation. We are so happy today to have our dear friend, dear speaker, Rejane Planner. Rejane is an electrical and nuclear engineer with a master degree in nuclear engineering from the Military Engineering Institute, Rio de Janeiro. But since 1989, Rejane has been living and working in Austria, an international atomic energy agency, and she has retired. For 27 years, she worked at various positions in nuclear energy and nuclear safety and security. She has a long-term member, has been a long-term member of the IAEA Publications Committee, coordinated dozens of publications and published several technical journals. Since 1994, she's a member of the Society for Scientific Exploration. She's vice president and co-founder of the Association for Spiritist Studies Allan Kardec in Vienna, Austria. She's also a writer, a poet, and has contributed articles to several Brazilian Spiritist magazines, among them Presença Espírita, Revista Internacional do Espiritismo, International Momento Espírita, and O Reformador. So it's very special for us to start this series of talk, the USSF, with Rejane Planner. But before we started, we would like to invite you all, especially at this moment that humanity has so much need of prayers and good thoughts and vibrations, for us to unite our thoughts, wishing that we can gather the best that we can from the talk today, that we can learn about our thoughts, how to control our thoughts, and the importance of our way of thinking in terms of determining our role in humanity and determining how good or how bad we are going to feel. We ask for the presence of the benefactors so that our speaker, Rejane, may be inspired and guiding us and be able to guide us in this journey through the thoughts. Thank you, Rejane. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. You probably noticed that I'm a very small old lady living in Austria for 30 years. That means my accent is I used to say the UN accent. The Americans would say that this is the Latina accent. Then apologize if it's not at the US standard or American standard, but I think we can communicate. Thank you, Jussara, for giving me this opportunity to collaborate, to cooperate in this very special day. It's for us a day where most of the world remembers Jesus, the testimony of Jesus. And being here has a very special meaning for me. And thank you. Thank you. And I also wanted to ask Lord's mercy for us, and that He increases our faith, that we go through those difficult times, thinking what we can contribute to the humankind individually. We cannot change the world, but we can change ourselves. And this is the subject of this short presentation today. The aim here is to have a short analysis on thoughts about what is thought, looking to the scientific and the Spiritism views, and came to some conclusions that enforce our life, give us a little bit of power, the power to grow through the challenges of our life. And why we decided to look at thought, it didn't come in those times that we are living now, but we know that society imposed us a lot of challenges. We are confronted with tragedies in the everyday, either earthquakes or floods, terrorists, the daily life that is so hectic that we can't sometimes not think what to do and mix everything, and we need really to calm down. Maybe the corona is giving us this opportunity, although it's very hard to face something that we don't know, the consequences, the effects. I think this gives a lot of fear. But like Divaldo Frank has said in the last weeks, no, we should not have fear. Why fear? We are here to live the best we can. And then let's see how we can better live our lives by looking at how we thought, how we can command our thinking, and avoiding being that, like Buddha say, that crazy monk that jumps from one tree to the other. I believe that we should look at those things from two aspects, from the heart and from the mind. With the mind, we will understand, we will know, and with the heart, we will comprehend. We will have compassion, and we will also forgive ourselves for the mistakes we do and forgive the others. Then it also, when I think about this thematic, I remember the several seminars that I attended with Divaldo Franco here in Europe. Every year during Pentecostes, it's a special holiday in Europe, 3 days. He used to come to Zurich in Switzerland and talk about several different thematics, but always with this approach of what we could learn and to modify, to change our lives. And often the spiritual mentors through Divaldo and also in their books through Chico Xavier, through other mediums and other writers in our society, they have advised that we should seek this inner balance, our inner balance, to be in harmony within us. And to do that, we needed to think and to observe our thinking process. Only by being in harmony with ourselves, we can really contribute to our community. I remember that my mom used to tell me in the troubled times when kids were small, and when or were teenagers that challenge our lives with what to do, what not to do. And my mom would used to say, calm down. You are the key in your house. You are the key in your home. If you are disbalanced, everyone will get crazy. Then calm down, quiet your thoughts, trust, and go on. And this has been a thought in my life. And I hope this looking forward for this well-being is something that we need to build with good thought, with balanced emotions, trying to bring to our life these sentiments, these good memories, when we were joyful, when we have this happiness in our life. Everyone has. There is no one that has missed at least 1 second, 1 minute, 10 minutes of joy. This is what the mentors tell us. Think positively, think health, think tolerance, think compassion, think and feel love. It looks so simple, and it is simple, but it is also a deep understanding of who we are and of our role in this world. Then let's start a little bit with the reasoning. Sorry. What are thoughts? Do we think we know what are thoughts? We know what we think. And how can our thoughts influence our life quality? The first question is quite difficult to answer. The definitions of thought, if you look at the dictionary, for instance, the Oxford Dictionary, it's very plain. It's an idea or an opinion produced by thinking or occurring suddenly in the mind. The Britannica, the famous Encyclopedia Britannica, it says the thought coverts symbolic response to stimuli that are either intrinsic or extrinsic. That gives a little bit more. But the psychologist and the philosopher, they have a little better or a bit better understanding of what thoughts are. For instance, this famous Italian philosopher Bagnano, he wrote a lot of interesting books and a new thinking current in the 70s. He said that thought is a mental or a spiritual activity. That is the thinking or the rationalization, or is the spoken activity or the intuitive activity. That means there are 4 different kinds of thoughts, and probably there are much more kind of thoughts or facets or characteristics of thoughts in our thinking process. Therefore, it is important for us to look a little bit in the philosophy. It's not our intention to go through the deepest of philosophy, because I'm not a philosopher. When I was in the school, it was separate, unfortunately. Someone that studied humanism, you'd study everything. The other dumb ones, like me, would study scientific things, math, physics, and all the hard science. And we lack a lot. We lack some of those base fundamentals of philosophy, but we can learn always later in life, and this I think everyone should do. Without understanding philosophy, we cannot understand ourselves. This is why Kardec put when he codified, the Spiritism, he drew 3 facets. The Spiritism is a science, that means has a scientific aspect, has a philosophic aspect, and has an ethical and moral aspect, as Jesus has lived and taught. That means when we talk about Spiritism, we are not talking only about a science, or only about philosophy, or only about ethic and moral, or the religious aspect that I try to avoid the word. But I prefer to say the gospel, like Jesus taught us, like Jesus invited us to live. Then it's clear, for me at least, that we need the philosophy. And I would like to put some of the concepts that have changed our world, and starting philosophy. René Descartes. He said what everyone knows: I think, therefore I am. For him, thinking means being. Only someone that thinks can be something. But this has a lot of implications, because with that, Descartes made a distinction between body and mind that make our life difficult till today, because of this dichotomy between body and mind, we have a strong materialist society. We have rationalism bringing us to look at science very, very rational, in rational ways, and without thinking what we are. We are not only rational beings, we are intelligent spirits created by God, and we cannot forget our origin, where we come from. Then for Descartes, thinking is typical for the rational humankind. He was a French philosopher, mathematician, science. He was a revolutionary, and we own him a lot in our society. But we also own this dichotomy. Another interesting philosopher is Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer opened another view of human being. We could say that he changed the I think, therefore I am, for I will, therefore I live. The will is a fundamental characteristic of human being. Will is also intention. And it's interesting that this German philosopher Schopenhauer lived in the 1788 to 1816. That means he died almost in the time when Kardec was codifying Spiritism. I will not say that he influenced Kardec. I would say that the spirits influence his mind, his thinking. And he already put together the thinking, the living being, and the will. Like we'll see that the spirits have called our attention to that duality, thought and will, as driving forces for our soul. Just to remember how scientists have looked at how we think. They have searched for centuries the thinking process and all our thinking capacities, abilities, or how we express our thinking in the brain. They discover a lot. They discover that there is a motor center, a sensorial center, the Broca area that commands our language, the speaking understanding, the hearing center, the vision center, and so on and so on. However, although they tried, none of those functions explain thought, explain intelligence, explains thinking, explain memory. Those functions are not processed in the brain. Yeah, you may say, oh yeah, there are. And people are not talking about quantum and quantum process and quantum this and quantum that. But we have not proven yet. And there is a lot of quantum absurdities and quantum nonsense that people take and sell to who does know what a quantum mechanics is. Quantum processes are very important, and they do have a role in ourselves, but because quantum is the theory that try to understand the minimal particles that made our material world. But it's a theory. It's a proven theory, but it cannot be yet extended to everything. Then we come to who was born in 1804 and died in 1869, as everyone say. And in the Spiritism, well explained, or in short explained, Kardec says that Spiritism is a science that investigates the origin, nature, destiny of spirits and their relationship to the material world. It's a very interesting definition of Spiritism. For me, it's a definition that can explain and can come to those rational minds in our society that avoid everything because they are so materialist that they don't believe in anything else, that they cannot grasp, that is not tangible. But here he said that Spiritism is a science. That means we should look to the scientific aspects of Spiritism. We should try to understand our origin. Where do we come from? Where do we go? Where are we going after this life? What is our nature? What is the destiny of the spirits? Where we come after the death of the physical body? And what is the relationship between this tangible world where we live and the intangible world for us, that is our real world, where we come from, that is the spiritual world. Then Kardec brings in the codification of the spirit is important concept. Spirits, we are intelligent beings of the creation. Between us, this energy that is our spirit and what we are today in body, I myself, Rejane, and the Rejane that is the spirit, it's another Rejane. This spirit, Rejane, is a very old spirit or a young spirit, I don't know, who has lived through many, many, many lives, who has come here with now a personality that is part what I am, and that communicates to the body that is here through the perispirit. What is the perispirit? Is this energy body that surrounds us, that is that makes this communication between what we are as a spirit and our body. That means it's a transducer of energies. Is a medium, a media of what we are and what we are now. Difficult to translate that in English because the word is almost the same. But in German or in Portuguese, we could say in different verbs. But the perispirit is an important function. The perispirit is not the aura. The aura is an emanation of the perispirit, the body, and the part of the perispirit that is the duplet double, the etheric double, I think we say in English. But it's important to understand what is the perispirit, that we understand that our thinking that comes from what we are, it has to be translated to our body to be expressed in images, in spoken language, or in drawings or whatever. Then what thought is, according to the Spiritism, in question 8-9 of the Spiritist book, Kardec, the Spirits tell Kardec that wherever the thought is, there the soul is. Since it is the soul that thinks, and thought is an attribute. That means thought is an attribute of our soul. What is the soul? The soul is what we are as incarnated spirits or disincarnated spirits. Because this spirit that is an energy, an intelligence energy, it cannot communicate with the material world. It needs this media, this perispirit. And the perispirit that encapsulates in somehow the spirit, it is what we call for the disincarnated bodies, the soul, or for the incarnated bodies, I don't know the word in English, but probably it's the same, the soul. I also wanted to confess to you that for me it's difficult. It's the first time I talk about Spiritism in English. I think I did some lectures in German, in Portuguese, of course, but in English I have to look for the words, the right words. I mean, I apologize if I misuse some words here, and I hope someone will correct me later. I'm open for that. I'm always learning. In another interesting book, Mediumship Challenges and Blessings, the spirit Manuel Filomeno de Miranda says that thinking is a dynamic energy in continuous movement. Now you understand why Buddha said that we should control this crazy monkey that is here, because this crazy monkey that is our thought can jump from one subject to the others. People say that we women do that quite often. I would say that we deal with many things at the same time, but we don't jump from one thing to the other. But thinking as a dynamic energy, it is always in movement. And because it is in movement and because it is an energy, it creates. And when we put together thoughts and will, we are putting intention in the will. And then we can say that we are making the world that we live. If we put the will of being happy, I will be happy. If my thoughts will, or my thinking process will give me joy, will produce, will select substances in our body that will help our body process and make us more immune to the illness, to different illness. Francisco Cândido Xavier, our dear Chico Xavier, writes in the book Thought and Life, Pensamento e Vida, that the will is the steering wheel of all kinds of forces. You see the importance? And also, Emmanuel Spirit says in this book that the will rules every sector of mental life. Let's think a little bit about that. It rules every sector of our mental life. We can do things on purpose, with intention, and we can also do things without being aware of, because sometimes we are not conscious of what we think and how we think. And with the will, this harmony of unbalanced soul drive us crazy. What I mean, if we have aggression, if we have envy, if we are not happy with ourselves, we are not happy with the others, we are putting intention in those thoughts. And we are almost killing ourselves. And we are almost also bringing us illness and challenges that we could avoid. I like very much Leon Denis. Leon Denis was one of the first philosophers, writers of Spiritism. And in one of his books, Life and Destiny, he says that thoughts creates our life conditions. He says that thought does not act only in our surroundings, influence our fellows for the good or for the evil. It reflects within us. It brings into existence our words, our actions. And Therefore, we can build a miserable life or a very happy life. This is everything what Joana de Anjos has taught us along the years, the many years that Divaldo Franco has gone around the world, teaching us and bringing us together. I was happy to know that most of the people in the US that are now, like Jussara and others leading the movement in the US, have come at the same time that I came to Austria in the end of the 80s. It looks that at that time we all were called to different parts of the world to bring spiritism in small groups and to learn first and then be able to share what we have learned with the others. And in Divaldo Franco and Chico Xavier and Raul Teixeira and so many others have given us this opportunity to learn with them what the spirits want us to learn, how to deal with our own conflicts, how to deal with what we produce as in our thinking process. And in another interesting book, everyone should study the collection of André Luiz, channeled by Chico Xavier. And in this book is the mechanism of mediumship. I found it in ebook, in Kindle. André Luiz says that either we like or not, every one of us has an unmeasurable source of own energy. And this energy is within us. This energy will flow, will expand our perispirit and from us and will touch others. It will make our psychic photosphere, like he say. And based on our thinking on this potential that we have within us, we can change the world around us. Remember what I said that my mom advised me to do? Be in harmony, and you will be able to deal with the conflicts of your children, of yourself, of your life with your friends, with your colleagues, in your work environment. Because if we are in harmony, this psychic photosphere is also in harmony. This is what we need to look for now. Because when we have thoughts, we can create. And we have said that thoughts are dynamic energy. This dynamic energy can create fluidic images and reflect itself back on our spiritual body, as in on a mirror, or it can release and get in touch with others that live with us. Most interesting, these are not only words, right? These can be proved and have been proven by some scientists and by some researchers we'll see later on. Our intention is always to put the Spiritist teachings with science background. Not that I want that science prove Spiritism. I don't need that. I have read enough proofs. I have been the Thomas in my young life, and I now don't have any doubts. But it's interesting to see, as a scientist that I have been in my past life, 30 years, in the former 30 years, it's interesting to see that a lot that is written in Kardec's book, especially in the Spirit's book and in the Genesis, is now proven by science. How are those photography of thoughts or thought thoughtography, like we call. There was a famous medium in US, probably you have heard about him, Ted Sirius. He was researched by Dr. Jules Eisenbud at the University of Denver, Colorado. And Ted Sirius had this power of thinking and imprinting his things in a photograph. It was very interesting, and I'm holding a paper here to show you. Sometimes he would do just like that, put like a paper like that, and here photograph paper, and he would like channel his thought or his thinking process to this photo. And in one of these experiences that I show here in this slide, he was giving a photograph of someone in a cave, a primitive man in a cave, taking the photos. You see that the first photo is almost nothing. In the second, you can see something, and then in the third, in the sixth, the shape is almost there. In the fifth, in the sixth, the shape is there. That means it takes him a lot of power, a lot of strength to produce the image of his thought in the photograph. If you wanted to look more about that, because we will not have time to go through in depth about all those examples, I put here the link where you can find more about Ted Sirius and the Dr. Jules Eisenbud. Many people have been against Eisenbud and Ted Sirius. Many, as has been often in our society, when people don't understand the phenomenon, it's better to say that it doesn't exist or it's a fraud. And they accused Ted Sirius of fraud, and they said that Eisenbud could not replicate many of those experiences. I would invite you to look and research. This is only one example. We'll have more examples to show here, and to talk a little bit more about. Another example that I just remember now, it is in the book from Bolzano. Take note, Ernesto Bolzano. It's an Italian researcher from beginning of the 19th. And he's one of the good and virtues of Spiritism and spiritualism too. In one of his books, Thought, Pensamento e Vontade, in Portuguese, probably there's also in Italian, he writes about an industrial Australian who looked for a medium called Borneo. This happened in 1905. That means beginning of the 20th century, sorry. And this medium, Borneo, was a good medium, and he used to do photography or thoughtography. And this Barnes, the Australian, he asked that Borneo make a photograph of his thought. And nothing came, and then suddenly it came the image of the Empress of Austria, not Australian, Austria, where I live, the famous Sisi. And it was very interesting because Born said, but I'm not thinking about her. And then they said, oh, this is not true, because I was not thinking about the Empress Sisi. But then talking about with the Bornes, he remembered that he had bought a book about the life of Sissi, and the book has impressed him very much. And he had just finished the book before he went to see Borno. This is another interesting phenomenon. Bosano explained this type of phenomena with the cosmic fluid. He says that the cosmic fluid of our perispirit is used like a subproduct to produce then the image in the photography. I would say that it would be the vital fluid, or what we call today ectoplasma. It's part of the vital fluid that we all have within us that is used to produce the image. But what does it mean? It means that our thoughts can also move matter, and we will see examples of that in the university later on in my talk. Another example of TED series is a photography of the Pantheon. That it was a little bit not in the horizontal position. No one can explain why, but it's how TED series was thinking about the Pantheon and imprinted in the photograph. And then I would like to remind us, it's very interesting to think about photographs, but it's also very interesting to think about what we can produce and how we influence ourselves and others. And if you remember, there is I think well-known lady, Mrs. Barbara Ann Brennan, who lived in New York, where some of you are, who wrote the book Hands of Light in the 80s. She is a medium. She has, I think, a school in New York. I'm not making advertisement about Barbara Brennan, but she was one of the pioneers. And she drew in her book some of the aura or the bioenergy field of some patients that came to her, and how she perceived the aura of those patients. And it's interesting because this aura is the aura of a normal, someone without any problem at that moment. She saw it as a very bright aura with some connection here and some bluish that she explained that is the etheric double, and this is the aura. But then when the same guy was playing music, there's something changed, you see? He is already like spreading energy, different stuff from his aura. And when another person was like me doing now, probably a patient talking about education, talking about something that he liked very much, his aura was very harmonious. It was very round and plain and with a nice color. I'm not telling you that this is what happens. This is how Barbara Ann Brennan as a medium saw it. But there are important observations here that when this guy played music, it released something. And when this lady, who was a lady who was very, at that time, with a lot of aggression within herself, because her father died and she felt lonely in her life. She felt without anyone. And instead of sending love to herself and to her father, she became very aggressive with him for letting her alone. And this aggression and even hate that she felt at that time, Barbara Ann Brennan saw like some arrows coming from herself. We can then bring this further and understand what we do when we are aggressive against each other, when we have bad words, when we shout to each other. This is the aura of the same woman that when she could, in another episode, when she was telling Barbara and Greno about her strong feelings, also very disharmonious. There is no harmony here. Although she has different kinds of colors, and we could think that this is something in harmony, but it's quite different from that one. There are arrows coming out, and we'll see the research of Dr. Kothoff. Later on, you'll see how he compares doing scientific research, and he comes to similar conclusions. And this is an important observation. Everyone tell us, hey, it comes back. Yeah, it comes back because it's a feeling, and feeling are emotions, and emotions are thoughts that are communicated to our body through certain substances, the neurotransmitters, that bringing them to all our body, and also that release, not the substance, but the whole perispirit release to our energy field. Don't forget that this aura is a mixture of electromagnetic energies released by our body functions, our heart pumps, our lungs have also movement, our blood circulates, and our and the energy fields that make the perispirit. Then let's see something further. What can we conclude? We are word in ourselves. Like Chico Xavier said, each mind is a word in and of itself, living in creative waves, and we release those waves, living in this psychosphere in which we are. And if we are in this psychosphere, we are absorbing this psychosphere, and we are releasing this psychosphere. And that means that we need to take responsibility for what we are, for how we think, for how we deal with our lives, and how we express ourselves in the world. With thinking, speaking, listening, and doing. Now let's see a little bit briefly. Jusara gave me 1 hour and 1 hour, 10 minutes, I hope. I would like to call the attention for some scientific researches. I'm not going to current stuff, but I'm coming from I will start with the pioneers. I've been an admirer of Candance Pert. She passed in 2013. She was a pioneer, a fighter. And she was the pioneer on the research on how the our emotions influence our body. She discovered the neurotransmitters and opened what we call today the psychoneurology. And she says, and you can find there in the internet, she says, since emotions run every system in the body, don't underestimate their power to treat and heal. And I found very interesting that she calls the attention is why we have all heard about psychosomatic illness, but we have heard so few about psychosomatic wellness. This is what we are talking here. How we can turn ourselves in a health body and live in this health body and in this health environment. We want to turn around. We don't want to be sick. We want to be healthy. We'll get sick because our bodies will get old. We are all getting old, and our body functions will weaken. And that is natural. But we can avoid being sick for every small thing that we do wrong. We can live more sweet, more light, more responsible, with more responsibility for ourselves and for the world we live in. And Dr. Candance Pert had a lot of courage. She writing her book, Molecules of Emotions, and she was one of the first to say that psychosomatic practices such as meditation, contemplation, and prayer are beneficial and proven effective for the individual inner balance and health. This is what we say. We are not all doing prayers for the world. We should pray, but we should also not forget what Jesus said. What he said? Remember? Orar e vigiar in Portuguese. Pray and look at yourself. Look at your actions. Look at your thinking. Because you need to look at what you are doing, to analyze, to observe yourself, and then pray. Pray that we don't fail again. Pray to have strength to be resilient. And this is what our faith brings in, the rational faith. Then let's do now, meditate for our well-being, for our balance. Contemplate. It's so nice to look at the blue sky today here where I live. It's a spring, we'll say springtime, but it's almost like summer. We have 25 degrees outside. It's a blue sky, and it's nice to see that it's a blue sky. Although we are praying for the rain because we need rain too. And rain is beautiful because it cleans everything. We can contemplate the nature, the trees, the fields, the green fields, or the beautiful skyscrapers in UK, in US, in New York, or wherever you are. We can meditate wherever we see a star, and we can bring inner balance and health to ourselves. Now, back to science. Probably you have heard about Dr. Benny Siegel. He wrote Love, Medicine, and Miracles, among other books. And he put his word on what Pert said. He says, our bodily organs and process have the capacity to stimulate the production of psychic images, meaningfully related to the type of physical disturbance and its location. I have a friend now who has cancer. Cancer is one of the diseases of our times. And I was so glad when I talked to her this week, because she told me, I'm talking with my body, and he is responding to me. And she was so happy, and we were both very happy for her, because we can talk with our bodies. That is not dumb. This is what the spirits tell us to do. This is what this talk is about. Our thoughts, our thinking is a kind of talking with our body, with our soul. Contemplation, meditation is quieting yourself, is finding your place within. Then with that, we influence ourselves. That is another interesting example of how our mind influence matter. Nina Kulagina. Her name was not Nina Kulagina. Her name was Neila Mikhailova. She was a housewife in the 60s, and she had such a power in herself. She said that her granny also had this power, that she could do what you are watching in this picture. She could hold an egg in the air, levitate an egg, but she could do more. In one of the experiences that they did with her in the University of St. Petersburg, with a lot of Russian scientists, and there were some American journalists that went at that time to St. Petersburg to meet Nina Kulagina and understand what they were researching there with her. They are Sheila Ostrander and Lynn Schroeder. They write an interesting book. I think you can find those in the internet. It's Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. It's one of the first books about the former Soviet Union research written, I think, in the beginning of the 80s. And in that book, they talk about this experience and the experience that they observe Nina Kulagina do. It is very, very impressive. They put a frog, the heart pulsing like that, and with her power, the mind of her power, she stopped the heart of the frog. It's it took her quite a long time. It took her over 7 hours to do this experiment. And after that, she was very, very weak. She had to rest for another week or 10 days. That means it took her strength, because probably she took from our vital fluid stuff to bring that with her will and with her thinking to stop the frog's heart. If you wanted to look, there is a movie I put here in YouTube. I will not show here, but there is a movie that shows some of her experiences or events with Nina Kulagina. I wrote an article in Presença Espírita about her for the Portuguese colleagues and friends. If you want to go to Presença Espírita from Leal, the name is A Curious Event. I will translate and put in my webpage sooner or later when I have time. I mentioned Mr. Korotkov, Konstantin, I think 20 minutes ago. I knew him personally. We met in a conference in 2016 in Sweden, in Sigtuna, close to the capital of Sweden, Stockholm. And by one of those coincidences that make our life more interesting, I didn't know anyone in the conference. I was no one. I was just a participant as everyone. But I used to come very early for breakfast and was alone. Suddenly come this guy with his bag and asked me, "Can I sit down with you?" I said, "Oh, of course, you are free." And then we start talking, and he asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm Brazilian." "Where are you born?" And I said, "I was born in Porto Alegre." Now you know, I'm a gaúcha from the south of Brazil. And when I said that, he started talking about Spiritism and about a famous priest that lived in Porto Alegre and had a lot of abilities, mediunic abilities. I didn't know about him. I went after that to look who was that guy and did some research. I forgot the name, I apologize for that. But Korotkov started a kind of friendship on that day with me. And then I went to his lectures and I observed his experience. He's a professor at the State Technical University of St. Petersburg in Russia. And he developed an imaging technique based on the analysis of the protons and neutrons emissions. He called that technique bioelectrophotography. He already has given lectures on that in several places in Hungary. I think he intends to go to Brazil. I'm not sure if he went or not. But he concluded that positive and negative thoughts cause different effects in our environment. And his main research is in the medical field. I bring here only one example. This is his presentation of the electrical field of an individual before and after treatment. That means they use it to give treatment, either normal medicine, conventional medicine treatment, and also some healing therapies, and measure the energy field of the patient before and after the treatment. And it's interesting that this guy had the energy field measured by his equipment, not, you see, with a lot of spaces, lacking energy. And then after the treatment, it was something more harmonious. Here is not the aura. Here is the energy field measured by him. This is not electrolysis, please. Yeah? It's a technique different than that. You can, if someone wants more explanation, I can send, just write me an email. And then we would like to bring what for us was one of the most important research worldwide, done in a very famous and reliable university, the Princeton University, and at the PIA, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab. The lab was founded by Jan. Jan was an engineer, and he and Brenda Dune, D-U-N-N-E. John, his name is Robert John, with J-A-H-N, sorry for the spelling. They founded the lab with a lot of difficulties in 1979 and started doing research on how thought influence matter. They developed the random event generator, where they would compare the different energy emissions, or I don't know how you say that, and do different kind of experiments. Brenda was a psychologist. He himself was an engineer. They invite other people. They invited 2 or 3 more people, and they became like the pioneers and the top researchers in that area in US, and I would say brought that to many other countries. I also met Brenda in 2016 in the same conference. It was a conference organized by the Society of Scientific Exploration. The society was also founded by Jan and others from Princeton, and is one of the most reliable scientific societies exploring science in the frontiers, not pseudoscience. I hate this word, pseudoscience, because people misused sometimes, because probably there is a lot of pseudoscience really around us, but there are a lot of scientific research, and the Society for Scientific Exploration doesn't do any, or its members don't do pseudoscience. They do science. They are all scientists. If you want to look to the society website, it's sse.org. Then they did a lot of experience with the random event generator and different types of experience. They also did remote viewing. They wrote a lot of papers and a lot of books, and they confirm that the mind influence matter without any questions. I will not talk about more about that, because it's not really the aim of our lecture. The aim is really to bring attention to science as confirming what Spiritism has said much before. Think that we are talking here about hocus pocus, like many people have said. Spiritism is a science, and important for us is that this science be considered a science with other science. It doesn't matter if we don't call it Spiritism, if they don't call it Spiritism. For us, it will be Spiritism, because Spiritism combines science, philosophy, ethic, and moral of Jesus. But science, when science brings the concepts of Spiritism, then we scientists will make another kind of science. We'll make the science of the Spirit. We'll be able to really insights and contribution to our world in another way, much better than what we are doing today with so many political discussions and so much materialistic views. That will be the new world, the regeneration word, that probably I will not live to be there, because I will be already too old in 30 years, but that we are living the beginning today, and I hope to come back if they allowed me to contribute again. But what we are then is what we think. Our thoughts create the like we seek through the reflections of ourselves. And then until we identify what we are, we cannot contribute much. But through the course of millennia, how say Emmanuel, with the infinite wisdom and the infinite love, which constitute the thought and life of our Father, we will come to the planification, to the happiness, through the word or to no word. We'll come back to our light being, to what we were, but now enlightened by love and by wisdom. But there is a long, long, long way. And Jesus, who came to taught us this psychology of love, came 2,000 years ago to bring us the tools to go within, to learn what we are, to, like the psychologists say, to take the shadows of our conscious and unconscious and subconscious mind and the shadows of our soul, and let us shine, because we all one day will shine. And Joana de Angelis says that the joy and well-being that come from directing our thoughts to love oneself, our neighbor, and the nature are agents of healing and peacemakers of the individual who spreads out to those with whom one lives. This is what she has been teaching us all for over 60 years, 70 years through Divaldo Franco. This is what the spirits of the codification have brought to Kardec. This is what Emmanuel, André Luiz have brought through Chico Xavier to us. This is what all the spirits like Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, like Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, and all the other noble spirits that are around us, and those that we don't know the names, because there are so many souls, enlightened souls, that we don't know, and we don't need to know the name, but they are with us. Then let's look first to ourselves, like Jesus said, love oneself, that you are able to love your neighbor. We can only love our husband, our children, our friends, our colleagues, our co-workers, our politicians, our bosses, everyone that is around us, if we love ourselves. Because if we don't love ourselves, we'll release only stuff that is not good. Neither for us, neither for the environment we live. Then let's hope that our thoughts, like said Kardec, and I'd like to finish with that, let's hope that our prayers go to God, that we can pray in such a vibration that we'll be with Him because we are with Him. And in Genesis, the Spirit says that our prayers, in order to be heard by God, have not to traverse space, not to be spoken with a reverberating voice, for being ever at our side, shouting. Our thoughts are perceived by Him. Is what we think and how we think that is important. Because like they say, our thoughts are like tones of a bell. We vibrate, and they vibrate our molecules, and they vibrate the environment we are. And I hope today we'll ask Jesus, who gave his testimony of High Spirit, to protect us, to guide us to our journey with Him, that we can spread His love wherever we are. Many thanks for being with us till now. I apologize for the accent, for this UN English that I learned with my colleagues here. The Indians, the Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, the English, the Turkeys. I would love if one of them is listening to me now. I have good friends in Hawaii, in Atlanta, people that are very dear for me in the US, people who have changed my life, who have something left in my soul. In China, in Hawaii, in New York, in Brazil, in Peru, in Chile, in Argentina, in Sweden, in Finland, in Norway, in Korea, in Singapore, in Bali, wherever you are. God bless you.
Rejane, thank you so much for this enlightening and inspiring talk. It's going to be with us. I'm sure we have a lot to reflect. You gave a lot of food for our thoughts. So we will be thinking about the knowledge that you brought to us and all the understanding, and just to know and to understand the ability that we have with our possibilities to dictate our lives, to impact ourselves in terms of maintaining a good and uplift and environment around ourselves with our loved ones, and even to impact our physical bodies. And so we are very grateful as well for all of you that have joined us today. This is the first time we are doing that together with Rejane. By the way, Rejane, your English was absolutely fantastic. Everyone was writing here that it was very clear, and sending their appreciation for the work you have been doing. And so, before we start, we go to our end, we would like to acknowledge also that today we would like to pay homage to Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, who 120 years ago have returned to the spiritual world. But we all know, even if invited to go to much higher levels of spirituality, he has plead to stay with us because he wants to keep on helping us. So we will go through our final prayer, thanking this spirit, the spirit of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, especially on the current days that we are living. We know how much him and his team of benefactors are working tireless around the world to bring us comfort, consolation, to help us in maintaining not only our physical health, but above all, to maintain our mental strength, our spirit filled with hope and gratitude, trusting in the wisdom of our Heavenly Creator that loves us unconditionally and only brings to us experiences that will wind up helping us in our process of evolvement. We thank our brother Jesus for all the blessings, for all the lessons now that also we are living on earth, a time where it comes to our minds the remembrance of his ultimate sacrifice in order to give us his testimony of trust in God. So, in this time of struggle for all of us throughout the world, let us remember Jesus. Let us remember his sacrifice and how he endured with courage, with encouraging words to all of us up to the end. So let us, as ourselves, as spiritists from around the world, feel the tender embrace of our Master Jesus, the tender embrace of Dr. Bezerra, and all the good spirits and the benefactors that are now united from all over the world, reaching each one of us, each one of our homes, with words of encouragement. Let us unite, let us love each other, let us pray together always for the betterment of our world, for the betterment of each one of us. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for watching. And next Saturday, we will be here again with Dr. Vicente Pessoa, that is going to be giving a lecture to us in terms of forgiveness. So don't miss this
Oh,
opportunity of being with us again, the United States Spiritist Federation, for this new series of talks, and next week at 11 a.m. here in New York City. Thank you.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.